I'm sure there must be a God, but I just don't know what he's like. I don't know if really, but that may be all right for you. It's not all right for me. But in the midst of that, I thank God. Friends of mine continued to share things with me about what was going on in their lives and their faith. And in the end, I found myself being invited to a Christian meeting where I heard somebody explaining basically the message of Jesus. And I'd heard it before, but the way they explained it was somehow it just had gripped me differently that night. And I'd kind of gone into that meeting with a mindset of, I mean, it was a big meeting, there were kind of hundreds of people there. I'd gone into a mindset, if there is a God, and I can't find him where there's all these hundreds of Christians, then as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't exist. And I'm going to stop thinking about God, and I'm just going to let my life go to chaos, because it's the only thing I can do to kind of pack in as much as I can, overdose on as many hard substances as I can, and basically, and I won't be sane enough or conscious enough to see my own demise. That was my mentality. That was my 5-year plan, more like a 6-month plan at 15 years old. And being in that meeting, all of a sudden I was struck by a thought which I hadn't really had for many years, and the thought was this: how selfish my life had been. How everything had been just about me, about wanting to get some kind of peace for myself. Even being interested in God and religion, the kind of the interest that I'd had really just been about me wanting to feel better about myself, wanting to feel better about my own mortality. And I suddenly was gripped by a sense of, and what's more, if there is a God, this is the thought that came to me. What's more, if there is a God, the way I've behaved, some of the things that I've said, I'm pretty fortunate that he isn't the one who's just toasted me with a lightning bolt or a meteorite or a truck or the Ebola virus or something, I don't know. I'm thinking, man, so I'm sitting on the floor actually, because I came in late. I didn't want to get really involved. I was kind of, on the periphery. And I was sitting on the floor at the back, and I thought, well, yeah, I guess it's a pretty poor show. So I thought, all right then, let's just put all bets off. I don't care what anybody thinks. I couldn't care less, because at the end of the day, if there is no reality other than this one, then they're just chemicals anyway, same that I am, so why should I care what they think? So the guy had finished just explaining the message of Jesus, a real simple message. Just said, Jesus is the Son of God. He went around revealing who God was to people, healing the sick, raising the dead, teaching people how to live in right relationship with God. And then he died on a cross to pay to get you forgiven, basically, for the stuff you've done wrong, which keeps you separate from a God who's holy and good. And he said, because Jesus died on a cross for you, he's paid the price for you, and he rose from the dead, showing he has power to conquer death. And basically, because he rose from the dead, he's still alive today, and you can meet him today. Because people who are alive, you're able to meet. And it's pretty much a message as simple as that. And in my head, I kind of thought, well, if God's real, he can hear my thoughts. So I said, God, I probably look like an idiot getting up off this floor and running down to the front to go and talk to that guy. But if this is real, and I don't know if it is, but if it is, I know it's what I need. And if you will reveal yourself to me right now, then I promise you I'll give you my whole life. And that was my prayer. Wholly different from the way I had prayed for 9 months to a year beforehand, almost on a daily basis, saying, what's the truth? Where's the answer? And, I read the philosophy books, I read the religious books, I read the, bits of the Bible, although, to be honest, I didn't really like the Bible. I found that most of it I couldn't understand, and the bits that I did understand, I found challenged my life. And so I remember skipping pages in the Bible before that time. Anyway, I love the Bible now. But I understand at that time, where I was, it kind of, there was a hardness in me. Anyway, I responded and I prayed, and I basically, as I said, God, if you're real and you'll meet with me right now, I'll give you my whole life. And a guy came just to pray with me, and he led me really just in a very simple prayer. And prayer is quite a simple thing, to be honest. God is very interested in our lives. He's very interested in meeting us, in encountering us, in dealing with what's going on in us, because he has better plans for us than we have for ourselves. So prayer is a simple case of turning the key in the door of your own life and just pushing the door ajar and allowing God to put the force on that door and come through. And that's really what it was like. Because I recognize that if God is who he says he is, and he's this incredible being who created the universe with a single word, nothing in me is able to attain to who he is. I can't reach him. Me, a human being, I'm completely fragile, completely at the mercy of whatever happens in this world. There's something Donald Trump said, which I really appreciate. You know, one of the richest guys in the world, one of the most successful business people in the world. And he said one of the most profound things I've ever heard anyone say. He said this: everything is luck. I thought, wow, there's a man actually who has some genuine humility in his life to recognize that everything that he's accomplished, if it wasn't for luck, if it wasn't, in other words, for circumstances outside of his control, he wouldn't be anywhere near where he is today. He's not one of these who turns around and says, I'm a self-made man. Everything I've got, I earned myself. Everything I got, I did myself. He said, no, it's all luck. Now, I disagree with him in the sense I don't believe in luck. I believe in divine intervention. But he's right in saying it's pure arrogance to think that we're really the masters of our own destiny when there are so many forces out there which are just ready to take you out. So many things more powerful than you in this world. And that's not even talking about the spiritual world. I'm talking about the natural world. So I just opened the door to God. And that's my first time I had what in philosophical terms would be an existential encounter with the numinous. In other words, I just thought I'd throw that one in there for any of you who like reading philosophy. I had a tangible experience in my 5 senses. Sometimes people say, I'll only believe in something that I can see, I'll only believe in something that I can touch, I'll only believe in something that I can taste or smell or read about. Well, I had an experience in my 5 senses. I sensed in front of me, I felt as if somebody was standing. Nobody was standing there, but I felt as if, you know, if you stand near to somebody, you get a readout in your own body. You can feel somebody's there. Whether it's heat or something to do with the air currents or whatever, you don't know. You can feel somebody there. I felt something in front of me. And then just as the guy who was standing next to me was praying for me, just as he said, why don't you thank Jesus for what he's done for you? I started to pray. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just thought, well, I'm just going with it. I just started saying, thank you, Jesus, for dying on a cross for me. And as I did, I felt that form, or that person that was in front, kind of just start to fill me, start to go inside of me, like a breeze kind of blowing in. And I felt as if all of the mess and all of the nonsense and the rubbish that was in my own mind and all the chaos in my own thinking was like a ball of string that somebody had grabbed hold of the end and had thrown it, and it had just unraveled. And I was just overwhelmed by the presence of what I now understand was the Holy Spirit. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but I was just overwhelmed by this presence. And it was so powerful that I couldn't stand up under it. It was too heavy, so I had to be on my face on the ground. It's the only thing I could do. And while I was there, it was like things were just breaking off of me. Things that were hovering around were just flowing out. And I was having an encounter, and you know, I don't remember everything. This was in 1999 when this happened to me. I don't remember everything that happened when I was on the floor, but I remember having a thought, and that was, in fact, I had a picture. It's like I'd come out of my body and I saw myself on the floor, but all around me was just an empty room with wooden floorboards with no carpet on it and windows with no curtains and just a completely empty room. And the one thought that stuck in my mind was simple. If this is the presence of God, if this is the reality of who God is, I can understand how a person can live with absolutely nothing else and yet have this and be completely at peace, completely satisfied in their life and want for nothing else. And so I got up off the floor transformed. And not everyone's experience is like that. You know, sometimes there's more of a gradual process. I found in my life, God's moved in many ways. There have been many things which have come as a gradual process. There have been other things which have come just like a lightning bolt. It began for me with a very immediate breaking off of everything that had gone on in my life before and then entering into something completely new. And I sometimes share with people, if that had been the only thing that had happened, then maybe I would have dismissed it at a later date. But the crazy thing was, from that day on, suddenly my life entered the twilight zone. I mean, things just got weird. I mean, I started to find, you know, I'm going to get onto this in a minute because I know you guys, some of you are really interested to hear some of the things about China and East Asia and what's happening there. But I associate a lot with the Chinese, Taiwanese, Malaysians, and one of the things I find when I discuss with them is they have an impression of Western society and particularly British people, particularly British Christians, that they can't really handle accounts of the supernatural. They can't really deal with stories of it. It's because we've been so conditioned by a modernist mindset to view things in a so-called scientific manner or an empirical manner, that stuff which is outside of our reasoned, logically defined boxes is just blows people's minds. They can't really handle it. And so they usually, when they want to share with me the kind of experiences that they've had growing up in societies where that isn't the case, they usually ask me, they say, are you able to kind of handle stories of the supernatural? You know, if they don't know me very well, are you able to handle stories about where we've seen how evil spirits have been working in people's lives, or where we've seen, you know, physical reality changed by, you know, supernatural interventions, miracles and whatever? And I say, yeah, so I've got no problem with that stuff. I said, I've seen that myself. And they're usually kind of surprised, because their experience of dealing with British is that they're very logical, very kind of, you know, modernist, really materialistically minded. And that's sadly true in the church.